A lion does not feel guilty when it kills a gazelle. Do you feel guilty when you squash an ant beneath your feet? I think that means something. No, that is not true. We human beings have not recognized ourselves as beings of pure will. This is from the movie Chronicle, and this is my view. Action packed, intense, dark, captivating, and definitely worth watching. For the longest time, this movie would pop up in my head, and I would remember it as such an amazing masterpiece. But I could never ever remember its damn name. I would always remember how it was so good and a work of art in its time. Anyways, I'm glad I'm starting my channel with this video, and when you watch this movie, you will definitely come across these memorable characters played by Dane DeHaan as Andrew, Michael B. Jordan as Steve, and Alex Russell as Matt. The chemistry between these three feels so real. Do you know why? Because director Josh Trank made Dane DeHaan, Michael B. Jordan, and Alex Russell live in a house together for 15 days in order to create a genuine bond between them. Wow, that's pretty cool. Now, if you've seen the trailer, three high school kids have superpowers like flying.
Come on.
Oh shit!
Oh man.
Telekinesis, super strength. But how do they get these powers? And then what do they do with these powers? How it changes their lives is the plot, for which you have to watch the movie or wait until you get the spoiler alert. But before that, let's talk about the movie's technical team. This movie was written by Josh Trank and co-written by Max Landis and directed by debutant director Josh Trank. And by the way, the film has no original score, only using sources such as radio and iPods to generate music, and it was unique as well as one of the biggest USP of the movie. That's why it feels so real. The movie was shot on Arri Alex camera, very realistic and grounded to reality, more than a regular movie. You might actually feel as if you were watching an incredible documentary or a vlog, just like those shaky cameras when you see a vlog in today's days and age. And I feel it was pretty incredible. Honestly speaking, it's a beautiful experience. You kind of travel with the characters in the movie. You can see rage, warmth, and soul justifying these characters, and everyone has played their part beautifully. I hope they come up with Chronicles 2 as its origin story, and they do have a lot of scope. Well, this is about the movie review, and now I will start digging a bit deep about the movie. So here is my spoiler alert. Please stop this video if you have not seen the movie. Do you know once there was a kid who was physically and mentally abused by his father? One day the child's father physically abused his son so bad that he ended up on a hospital bed, that too in a coma. However, the kid recovered and later on grew up and was one of the biggest dictators in the world. And his name is Adolf Hitler. There is a saying, monsters aren't born, they are created, because nothing chooses to be evil. It's a process. Andrew in the beginning is powerless and struggling. Andrew is slowly feeling the pressure of his situation, and it's crushing him, dealing with his abusive father and his dying sick mother. And over time you can see him slowly losing his humanity and morality, which makes him socially awkward, introverted teen whose main form of escape and expression is a video camera. But later, as we see his powers progress, we see him grow to understand that he has the power he needs to try and fix his life. He knows how powerful he is and what he can do, but doesn't, because he still has the humanity, and he doesn't think he is above everyone. And I feel Steve was the wall or bridge holding him towards the good side. By the way, Steve, played by Michael B. Jordan, the tall, handsome high school football player and running for school president with a high chance of graduating and more likely to succeed, was the soul of the movie. I always wonder what could have happened if Steve hadn't died. He was Andrew's first positive influence and friend, more so than Matt, his cousin. The fact is, Andrew opened up to Steve more than Matt because Steve was willing to actively talk to him, which led Andrew to trust him. This is why Andrew broke after his death, because a talented boy with great potential and a beautiful, soulful life was ended because he was trying to help Andrew, a lonely boy who ended up choosing the wrong path over time. We see how easily he is drawn towards the sinister mentality, especially after Steve's death. Following his mother's death, he unleashes his apex predator in him. He gets revenge on his bullies because he can. Then he starts attacking random people and doesn't feel bad for it because he feels humanity failed him and that they are no longer equal to him. You can see him falling off the deep end and losing his mind. And thanks to his abusive father for pushing him even more. And there you go, a pure monster is born. And finally coming to Matthew, purposeless high school kid who references philosophies to hide the fact that he has no meaning or purpose in life, making him less likely to make it in life unless he continues to figure out who he is on the inside and become the person who he wants to be. When everything goes down, especially when he loses his best friend Steve and was also forced to kill his cousin, realizes he was also a part reasonable in making Andrew into the monster he became. Now he has to live with these two facts as well as being presumably the only person with these sort of powers, leaving him being almost completely alone. The thing about this movie is it has a different and raw outlook on people getting superpowers. They are all not gonna make suits and capes and come together like Avengers or DC and start fighting crime or saving the world. Andrew is a mentally unstable, abused teenager who could have been a good person had he been raised in the right household and been given professional help. But I hope human beings recognize ourselves as beings of pure will, and that's my view.
I had this idea very early on that whatever gave them their power in Chronicle should be something that is ultimately kind of mundane. And it shouldn't be aliens, because aliens are dumb. That's how everyone gets their powers. It shouldn't be the government, because that's dumb too. It should be something that you just never think. So, massive, omnivorous, geodesic organism. In the Archaean Age, when there was lava all over everything, the Earth had no surface, there were giant organisms, sometimes as big as a half-mile wide, that were essentially just crystalline rock formations. They couldn't think, really. They were almost like a form of algae. They were massive. And the way they would move and propel themselves through the lava was electromagnets. So these things never died out. But, during the Archaean Age, we found remains of them over the years, but we can't identify what they are. They look like rock formations. You can't tell that they were alive ones unless you look and you dissect it. But so these things, as the Earth crust got formed, got moved further and further and further and closer to the core of the Earth that we know almost nothing about. So there are they're not even endangered. There are hundreds of millions of these giant crystalline organisms living near the center of the Earth. Now, they don't really need to feed much, but because they're from the Archaean Age, when protein was everywhere in minerals, they still sort of are omnivorous. They eat plants and meat. They don't eat rocks. So to feed, there's none of that down at the bottom of the Earth. They burrow tunnels up to the surface using electromagnetic manipulation. Once they're there, they burrow a tunnel up. It's usually at the bottom of the ocean, although it happened once in a place called Roanoke, Virginia, and it didn't turn out well for the people there. And it's happened a couple of times. It happened, one of them broke Earth at a place called Roswell, New Mexico, before dying of old age and crashing to the ground. In fact, almost every incidence of UFO, supernatural, or paranormal events can be tied back to these things that live near the center of the Earth. They're animals. They can't really do anything. They're like big dumb crystals, and the way they eat is they burrow a hole up to the surface, and they put out sort of this radio wave that mammals and higher life forms hear, usually fish, because they're at the bottom of the ocean. And 3 humans heard one of them. The humans in Chronicle are then drawn to the hole. You go into the hole, and it turns you into a telekinetic drone. You can then manipulate electromagnetic fields, which would allow you to move anything, although it would cause an intense strain on your brain, nosebleeds. But you're essentially a drone, and your job is to go and collect food. And you're connected to the other drones, except for the one in Chronicle was very, very old and very, very sick. And it died during the drone-making process. And 3 kids ended up with telekinesis, who should have just been absorbed by this thing at the end of its feeding period.
Andrew.
She's wearing black today.
That's correct endpoint.